They would literally cry in front of us. And we were shocked. Why are you crying? I love your product. You just changed my life. Again, they don't have budgets to get any licenses done. The team decided we'll give it away for free from the rest of the school year. You literally need a village to survive as a founder, and you need a support system, whatever angle, whatever facet that may be, but you do need that support. Looking back at it, we didn't raise a lot of money, right? We only raised around 2 million New Zealand, and that kept us through for 12 years. The mistake is that the great money is out there. There's actually great money here in New Zealand, right? Like angel investors like yourself, they exist. And, as mentioned before, there's great talents here that can help any founder through their early stages of the company. That's why I felt like, us raising, our capital here in New Zealand was the best way to do it.
Hey, it's Josh. Welcome to this season 3 of 2 Commas, the podcast. There's some changes that have happened in the background between seasons 2 and 3, which is a matter of minutes, not weeks or months or years. We've got a new table. This one's fancy. It's got marble on the top. Have a new sign to show that we're official. We will always be talking to founders. It underpins what we do on this show and exposing their stories, their journeys, their trials and tribulations, and of course, their exits. This season, I'm going to be branching out into death and divorce as well. That's an exit, often multi-million dollars in nature. It's a subject that also people are not talking about. So I'm really excited about this season ahead. Looking forward to having your ears and joining me on this amazing journey that we're going on through learning and exposing some incredible founders and their journeys. Incredible conversation today. I have Alliv Samson on the show. She's one of the co-founders of Cammy. Cammy had a $300 million partial exit last year, particularly near and dear to me as I was a pre-seed and a seed investor. And so I've walked alongside Alliv, Henji and Jordan, their journey with Bob along the way for the last 12 years or so. Alliv goes deep into pivots, decision-making, how to navigate your way through a market that's going through turmoil, holding on for the ride. It's an incredible conversation, and she's really, really insightful with the things that she goes deep on. And I was really grateful to have her here today, and I know that you're going to love this, so stick around for the ride. Alliv Samson, it's wonderful to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Hey, so you've been quoted as saying that every year in a startup feels like a decade. And it's been around about 12 months since the deal with BV Partners has been announced, so it's about a year. Has that felt like another decade, or has that felt like something different?
Personally, I feel like everything's just faster and more in tune to where we are right now compared to startup life. Things felt a bit slower and harder, and it's just everything just drags along, and
Yeah. Did you find at moments when you were going through the start and the growth journey that you would have really accelerated periods of like sprints and then you'd have to ease back a little bit? Or did you always maintain that kind of intense pressure? And that's a boating analogy, by the way, that I'm using there, a boating motion, putting the accelerator down. I don't know why I use that. I'm not a boating guy. But, putting the hammer down. Did you find that you went through sprints, or were you kind of the whole time, were you really intensely focused and running full steam, so to speak?
I think the slower pace moment was probably in the first year of starting the company, but like 2 onwards, it felt like everything is accelerated. It's either is it 2x acceleration or a 4x acceleration or a 6x acceleration, but it's always like go, 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 go. That's why it feels so much different now, post the deal, because it feels more like we're more in tune to actually running a company than figuring out a startup.
Yeah. The thing with a startup is that I describe it as you've got a grand hypothesis, which is that the world will want the idea that we are trying to solve for. Yes. So we have a solution set to a problem. And so the grand hypothesis is that thing. And then every day or every week, we have another series of hypotheses, which is that they might favor this ad type over here. They might respond to this price point over there. They might like to deal with this partner over there. Yeah. And so we have a series of hypotheses. And so testing and building those things can feel quite exhaustive sometimes.
It is, yes.
It is, yeah. And so you mentioned that you went from sometimes 2x, sometimes 4x,
Yes.
sometimes 10x probably as well. How did you manage your energy over those intense sprint periods?
It was very exhausting, but I think the thing that keeps us going is that drive of, hey, this is the goal. This is where we want to be. And that's why we just keep, I'm doing the movement now.
Yeah, we can't help ourselves.
We know where we're trying to go. That's why we're keen to keep accelerating and just moving forward. And then don't forget, there was this very weird period during the COVID 2020, 2023, where this is like next level. This is a 10x or actually 100x craziness that we didn't expect, but we needed to survive, but also thrive during that period. For us, we didn't have time to sit down and actually reflect. It's more of like, okay, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this. So the energy is there, and that goal keeps us going.
Yeah. I'm a keen student of Jim Collins, Good to Great, etc. And he's had a variety of books and he lists out the most important things. But when you hear him talk on podcasts or watch any of his lectures, he comes back to the single most important thing for a company is to be very grounded and anchored in what the BHAG is.
Yes.
Yeah, the most important thing.
Very important.
And so that was your kind of, so how did you bring that into the thing that I work with people on doing is to make sure that at every company, all hands, at all of the town halls, at the weekly management meetings, that they reground themselves, they talk about what that goal is. How did you go about bringing that into the operating rhythm and making sure it was really front of mind for people?
It's actually Hinji who does it really, really well, right? Like Hinji, since he's a CEO, he's very customer facing as well. So, which is very different to other typical CEOs, especially in EdTech. He would be at the trade show booths demoing the product, talking to teachers, talking to customers. So he's being this example to us all in the company that the most important thing at the end of the day is servicing the teachers. And that spread throughout the company, and whether it's an all hands exec meeting or just departmental meetings, the biggest thing that we always keep in mind is like, does this help the teachers? Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter whether this is the smartest idea, but if it doesn't help the teacher, it's not the best way to go. And that's, Hinji tried to instill that within the company. That's how we survived the COVID period as well, because we know our North Star, which is like servicing the teachers. This is the goal. And we're actually doing good for them. So whatever challenges there may be or whatever questions and problems that we might encounter, we always try to solve it with that in mind.
I love this. In New Zealand, it's become a bit of a trope. The America's Cup campaign in the late 1990s, our first successful campaign, and there was a guiding principle or question, which was, does it make the boat go faster? And so that's become a bit of a trope in New Zealand management speak, but still an effective one nonetheless. And so the version that you had at Cammy of that was, does this serve our customer? Does this serve the teachers better?
Absolutely.
I've heard of a notion of a executive meeting where there's a chair that sits with no person sitting in that chair. And the idea is that chair is the customer.
That's great.
It's cool, huh?
Really good.
And so you always orient towards that. If you're talking about any feature set, any solves, any change of price, you look and say, well, how would the customer feel about this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a cool idea, huh?
Such a cool idea. I think in Cammy, we literally have physical people in the room because we ended up hiring a number of ex-teachers.
Oh, I love it.
So whenever we, have these meetings, we literally look at them and talk to them and get their feedback. And their feedback is very valuable because, again, they've been in the classroom and they know what works and what doesn't work.
Yes.
So, but I agree, like physically, you're, having something there just to keep your mindset to where you should be. It's very helpful.
So we've jumped in and started talking about Cammy, but I'm really keen to go back to the start if I could, Alliv. Sure. So if you don't mind, could you give us a bit of an introduction to Alliv, please?
I moved into New Zealand around 2008. because my parents really wanted to, like, their dream country is to live in New Zealand, but that's their dream, right? So I was like, cool. And during that time, I'm already studying in the Philippines, and I already had like a plan in place. This is what I'm going to do, or, I'm already setting myself in the city. But my parents encouraged me, hey, how about you come with us and study?
You were of the age that you could make that decision. You could have stayed in the Philippines.
Stayed,
yeah. Okay.
And they told me, like, look, how about you go to New Zealand, get a degree, and if you decide to go back to the Philippines, at least you got an overseas degree, and it gives me this edge, or if I decide to stay, that's also a great option. But, it's for me to check out these opportunities. So I did. I came over and I decided that I want to study again. So I went to university in 2008.
In Auckland University, right?
Auckland University. I did arts degree. So I did political studies and media, because those are my interests then. And Lord of the Rings, like, I've heard a lot of great things. I want to learn about film, TV, but also I'm really interested into politics. So I went to university, and I guess the rest is history, because, I decided to stay.
Yes. And you met Henji and Jordan at university, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So this was, I think, during the last year of university. During that time, I was doing a lot of freelance work. I spent a lot of my time just doing everything outside of the classroom. Funny thing. I was web designing, graphic designing, taking photos. I was blogging before influencers were a thing. That's how I met Tina, actually.
Yes, my wife, yeah.
But for me, it's like these things interest me, but also I need to make money. So that's how I made money. And then I was volunteering on a couple of things, and one of them is United Nations Youth. And I looked after their creative side of the whole org. And someone from the engineering school joined one of the events that we've had, and he's like, hey, would you love to help out this engineering organization? They need someone creative to help them pull together this international event that they're hosting in a year. And, of course, I want more for my portfolio. And I said, yes, like, cool, I'll help out. I'll make the logos and all these collaterals. And that's how I met Henji. So Henji was the chairman of that organization. So they're organizing this big international event for engineers around, the region. And that's how we got to know each other. And Jordan was his best friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this was around about last year of university, about to graduate?
Yeah, about to graduate. I think around 2010.
2010. Okay.
Yes.
And so when did you start working on, so Notable was the first iteration of the product. When did the three of you start kind of working together, collaborating on that idea? And what was the original idea?
Absolutely. So Henji and Jordan, they're already on they're doing this Part 4 project. So if you're a software engineer, you'll need to go through this paper. And they're working on this product. They're starting to work on this product based on what they saw in San Francisco, because they were interning at some Silicon Valley companies during that time. And they went back to Auckland being so hyped from the Bay Area. They want to do something. They want to do a startup. So one morning, Henji texted me and said, hey, would you like to join the Velocity Entrepreneurship Program? So it's this competition in Auckland Uni where we can, submit our business idea and compete, but also help, get help along the way. I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'm assigned to do marketing during that time. Henji's going to be the CEO. That's why he got the CEO role. And Jordan, he's the product genius. So he's going to be the CTO. And he's like, cool, we have like 10 to 15 minutes to submit. I already completed the whole application form. So I just need you to say yes. I was like, cool. And so that's it. So the three of us joined that competition. And from that, we met everybody that helped us along the way.
Yeah, amazing. And so you and Henji are obviously married now, not obviously, but that you're married and you have a couple of kids as well. And so when did you start dating?
We were already dating during that time.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So you met, started, and then you started the business.
Yeah, so we met from that engineering org, and then we started dating around 2011.
Yes.
And then I think the Velocity Entrepreneurship was around 2012. And then we officially, based on the company's registry, we registered Cammy or Notable around February 2013.
Okay, great. And so you've been together, you've raising a family successfully, you've grown an incredible startup to a partial exit. We'll talk about that, obviously. But what were some of the lessons that you learned along the way about how to navigate your way through building a relationship whilst building an incredibly high-pressured startup?
I think for both of us, it was an advantage because, again, like building a startup is not that easy. We're spending a lot of time, like sleepless nights, working on all these problems and solving it. And the good thing is, like, I don't have, a partner that I need to explain what I'm doing, right? We're both wide awake trying to fix something or trying to get a deal. So we both understood that. I think the challenge has been like we're both on the same track of getting into an exhaustion. So we both will end up like, oh, this is too much. We need to like step aside, and we would go take a breather, and then we'll go back at it again. So I think that helped us along the way at the beginning. The biggest challenge right now is that now that we have kids, they're another startup. they're another company that you need to like look after and take care of. So this is a stage where we try to, kind of divide our work between like the company and the family.
Yeah, I got it. So what I'm hearing is that you were aligned with unified objectives, so you knew where it was that you were going, and you're also very attuned to each other's energy and what the business was taking from you and the inputs that you needed to put into it. I'm going to take a guess here as well that you had real clarity and separation of roles. Is that right? Yeah.
We were lucky, but also thankful that when we started the company, the 4 founders found actually where we're good at, and we know what we can bring into the table, and we'll focus on that. And we know each other's weaknesses as well. So that helped us guide through along the way. So throughout 12 years, we've always been in agreement to the biggest challenges that we've encountered, which is really good. And it helped us along the way.
Yeah. When I encounter founder conflict, so co-founder conflict, it tends to be rooted in one of 2 issues. So there's a separation of what they want from the business. So one wants to go global and, let's make a unicorn. And the other one's like, well, I'm really happy with this company that's turning over $10 million or whatever it might be. And so they have a separation there. The second is when there's a lack of clarity on role delineation. And so the notion of sticking to one's lane and having effective forums where you can get insight into what other people are doing so that you're talking about business performance in a forum and an environment which is appropriate, but you're not meddling in other things.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think we know when to lean on each other as well. So, and when we were about to make decisions, we always make decisions together. So that's like the partial exit kind of setup that we've had, which is that worked really well for us, and just made things easier. Because like, I agree, like I've seen founder conflicts happening everywhere where it's just, different people having different decisions or choices and ideas on where things should be. Even with this partial exit, thankfully, like the 4 of us agree that this is the path that we want to do, especially that, 2020 to 2023, there were a lot of interest that came in. One of us could have said, I want that deal. And then the rest of us could have said, no, I don't want that deal. But we all agreed that's not the deal that we want. It's not the right time. We'll keep moving forward. And then we came to this moment wherein we all agreed, like, this is it. This is the time.
Yeah. And so you've mentioned Jordan and Henji,
Yes.
and so Bob Drummond is the fourth co-founder.
Yes.
So Bob's obviously looks different when you see photos. And I know Bob, obviously, and they're a good man, lovely guy, and really super competent guy. When and how did you meet Bob, and how did you kind of bring him into the mix of the business?
So Bob was our advisor for that competition.
Ooh.
And he was the guy who mentored us for that program, and he was really good. Like during that time, we were like hungry students, and whenever we meet him, he would meet us in a cafe and feed us, which is like amazing.
I love it. You were literally and metaphorically hungry.
We were literally hungry, and he would feed us. He would tell us that whenever we meet him in a cafe, we would say hi to him and walk straight to the cabinet and get the food before we start talking, because we were just hungry. Starving. And he's been great because, again, he would give us all the advice that we needed and guide us through. And we had this really great relationship. So after the competition, like we didn't win, but he asked us like, hey, are you guys still interested in continuing? I know a guy who would be a potential good early investor, and that would have been David Russell. And we said, yes, we're still keen. We still want to keep doing this. And when we met David Russell, you, and a bunch of angel investors who actually helped us guide through our first year.
Yeah. Looking back, and if you put together the combination of the engineer, the kind of marketing creative person that you are, the product person, that's a super great founding team. But then you bring in the senior, kind of, no disrespect to Bob, but grey hair kind of person, been around the industry for, he would have been 25 years in tech at that stage. And so it seems an inspired decision looking back, right? Because you've got the energy and the dynamism and the just want to can do of people that are just at the graduate stage. I'm not implying that Bob is not energetic, by the way. He's super high energy as a person. But then you've got someone who's experienced and who's been through. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so did that dynamic kind of play out as you were going through the growth of the business, that you're all learning along the way because you were building something that you hadn't built before? But how did that dynamic shift and mold over time?
That dynamic was really great for us because we wouldn't have grown where we are right now without having that perfect mix of everything. Like Bob is actually named by some journalists as like the adult supervisor, which is
that's a bit insulting to everyone, then, isn't it? Yeah.
Which is like he was that guide for us, right? Like he joined the company fully. He left his previous company around 2017, so that's when he fully took a role of the CRO. But in between, he was advising us and guiding us along the way. And then when he took the role as a CRO, he focused on this revenue, and plus the advisory. And he's also our chairman, exec chairman. So Bob is such a great guy for us because he gives that guidance and direction, but also gives us the freedom to go wherever we wanted to go.
Yes.
Right? Like he's not the type of person, especially for his experience. He's seen everything, and he could have, easily said, "Don't do that, don't do this," but he did. He would give us advice on things and say, "Hey, this is how I see things. What we guys do," and then he would leave it to us to decide.
Yes.
Thankfully, we've chosen the right ones, the right decisions, and that helped us along the way. And we love talking about decisions. We are arguing through decisions because we believe that it doesn't matter who the decision comes from, whether it's from Bob, from Henji, Jordan, or myself. We got to argue it really well so that we'll end up with the best decision at the end. And that's how we've done things throughout the years. That's why we've been doing all these great decisions, not just for the short-term benefit, but also for long-term thinking as well, like preparing the company for long-term.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an added dynamic and complexity to the relationship because you've got a couple that are husband and wife.
Yes.
Then you have one of the co-founders is a employee, so CRO, so reporting to the CEO. But in the board context, he's the chair. Yeah. It's a complex dynamic.
And it's a complex. Yeah.
But what I liked what you said there, and I'll drop this expression in, which is something that I learned, is that argue like you're right, listen like you're wrong.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so what I'm hearing you say about the executive team, perhaps the board dynamic as well, is that you had an environment of trust and of safety where you knew that you could argue the idea. One of the things that I've picked up over the years as well is that ideas don't come from me, they come through me.
Yes.
And the benefit for me personally is that I don't therefore have ownership of that idea. It's simply an idea. And the concept is that when I'm in a situation where that idea is something that's open for discussion, then I'll argue like I'm right, listen like I'm wrong, because then I can achieve some level of objectivity to that idea.
I totally agree.
Don't feel like it's precious, because people with ideas are like, this is my precious, my idea.
Yeah.
I've got to look after this thing, and it's sacrosanct. And
ideas evolve as well. Right? Like your initial idea might change into something else, but it wouldn't change for the better if you're not open to changes.
Yes.
But how does that whole concept been with other people? Because I can imagine other people will have a great difficulty, like you said, being protective of their idea.
Yeah.
How does that work? How will they learn from it?
Yeah, great question. So I think to me it comes in establishing the right forum and the foundations of that forum. Mm-hmm. So for example, in a board conversation, it's about getting the people that will be a part of that board together early on and forming a charter.
True.
And a charter is how we roll.
Yes.
So how we make decisions, how we discuss things, how we go through the process of evaluating things.
And it's transparent.
Yeah. And Deborah Hall has a great expression, I think you know Deborah through FKA, which is that disagree and commit.
Yes.
So in other words, we might not reach consensus around this table. There might be 5 of us and 3 or 4 might go, this is a good idea, but if one doesn't, that's okay. And we can record that in the minutes for learning down the path.
Absolutely.
Make the decision and move on, because paralysis is, the worst thing, not making a decision.
Yeah.
Or the second worst decision is the whole horse designed by a committee which becomes a donkey.
No.
So you distill all the goodness out of it.
Absolutely.
And you don't take any risks.
Yeah.
So I think it's about the forum. It's about getting agreement within that forum
really
to the charter.
Yeah.
And then making sure that you revisit that on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
So that the dynamic is continued to be oriented towards what's the best thing for the business.
I absolutely agree. And that's what we kind of have done for the past couple of years. And it worked for us perfectly as well.
Yeah. So notable, as a start of a business, you've been quoted as saying that the problem was one that you were deeply connected to, and so you were solving an issue that you had as students.
Yes.
So tell us more about that, because that's a really interesting way to get into a business rather than it's a money-making or your passion or that sort of thing. So tell us about that really origin story.
I think for us, like we've always understood that to have a good product, you got to solve a problem. Yeah. And during that time, we know that we have our own personal problems. Like, for example, Henji and Jordan, who's been, seen the great things in the Valley. They were sitting in a Stanford, I think it was a canteen or something, or a lecture theater, and they saw a lot of the students using their devices, but, they're not linked to each other. And same, like as a art student, I photocopied a lot of lecture notes, and that cost me a lot of money, and it's not ideal to be carrying that going to your bus stop across like Albert Park. It's very heavy. And when you're in the lecture theater, you see, everybody has their own device and we're all looking at the same PowerPoint slides, but there's no interaction. So that was the first problem that we had. Like, how do we bring interactivity and collaboration within the lecture theater? So our first notable was EdTech, but it's focused within New Zealand universities just to solve our own personal problems. And we did manage to get around 5,000 signups for our first year. We did get some sort of partnership with Auckland Uni, just getting it onboarded. However, it was a struggle for us to scale that growth, but we were trying to solve a problem. So now students can, add a note on the side of their PowerPoint slides, ask questions, and the lecturer can look back at it after the lecture and answer some of those questions, or someone from the lecture room can immediately answer one of those questions. But it's a great way to share notes because, again, like everybody takes their own notes. Like, how do we do that better? So that was the first iteration of Notable.
Yeah. And along the way, the company had to pivot to Cammy. What was that step? What was that step change that needed to happen?
So that Notable was the first year. It was 5,000 signups. We only raised $10,000. So do not ask me how we survived $10,000 for a whole year.
Oh, Bob was feeding you, so
yeah, lots of instant noodles but for us, we weren't satisfied, and I think the investors, like you guys, weren't satisfied as well because it's not a good growth position to be in. So around 2014, we're like, either we shut it down or we pivot. So, and I think we were trying to raise a proper seed round and no one wants to put in money because, again, it's not a good place to be in. So we decided we'll pivot. We'll just release this product on the Chrome Web Store. And that's when things started happening. People started installing our app. Even though there's no logout button, a lot of the buttons don't actually work. So it was a PDF annotation app. And we started emailing some of these early users, asking them, why did you install it? Why are you using it? Like, this button doesn't work. And, their feedback is like, hey, I have a Chromebook. I need to open a PDF. I can't use Adobe, or I don't want to use Adobe. It's too expensive. I'll use Cammy. So there was some silver lining from all that. And we're like, okay, there's something here. And we started selling, some licenses early on and say, hey, how much would you pay for this product? And then we'll do all these features for you. And then I think we went back to the investors like yourself and we showed hey, people are interested in paying for this product. And there's a possibility of growing here. And I think we gained 5,000 signups within a month or something. So it's just it's massive difference of growth scale. So that's when we got our first seed investment, which is great.
Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn fame, he famously said, if you're not a little bit embarrassed of your first product release, you've shipped too late.
Yes, I agree.
And so you've said that you shipped a product where you had buttons that didn't work, you couldn't log out. There was bits and pieces like that. Get it out there. Cool. There. Just ship. I love that. Especially in the early days when you get some scale.
You don't want to perfect it. No.
Yeah, don't want to perfect it. One of my expressions is perfection is the enemy of progress.
I totally agree. Because what's the point of having a perfect product, but if your user has already moved on, right? You want to get your beta out there, get the feedback as fast as you can, iterate. Again, your idea might be great, but you shouldn't hold on to that idea really tightly. You got to release it and see how people react to it. And that's how we adjusted. So we kept adjusting. Up to now, we have that mentality of constantly adjusting whatever needs adjusting, adapting as fast as we can.
And always holding the customer and the customer problem very clear in front of mind.
Yes.
Speaking of customer, I'll quote someone else here, Brian Chesky from Airbnb. He said that in the early days of your startup, do things that don't scale, and particularly in relation to customers. And so you were asking customers, what is it that you want to see? Would you pay for this version? How much would you pay? So what were some of the things that you did early on that would not have been scalable as the company started to rapidly accelerate in growth?
Absolutely. So we try to be a product-led growth company. And before you find your product market fit, it's a lot of those unscalable things that we needed to do. For example, for the first year, we were literally knocking on lecturers' doors, asking them, can you please look at this product? Would you like us to implement this in your classroom? After that pivot, it's more of constantly talking to these users and asking them, where do you use it? How do you use it? How much would you pay for it? So there's a lot of constant conversations that are happening, and it's not scalable. Again, we were dealing with lawyers, doctors, hotels. I sold to big name hotels. And it's unscalable because again, you're trying to be everything
To
at the end
everyone.
of the day to everyone, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be very productive for us. Yeah.
Tina has a great expression. If you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When did you realize that EdTech and K-15, which I'm not,
K-12,
sorry, K-12,
yeah.
K-12, we'll talk about that in a second. When did you realize that the secondary high school market, the United States secondary high school market, was the right market for you?
So we actually covered from so kindergarten to year 12. So very big classroom spectrum. I'm not a salesperson. I was trying to figure out how to make a sale, and we've been getting a lot of requests from our users. Hey, can you do this feature that's very specific to their industry? And we can't alienate the rest of the users if we add this very niche feature on our product. So there was a time that we needed to okay, now that we've ventured and actually gathered all these information from all these industries, where do we go next? We got to focus. And before we did that, we got lucky because we got a grant from Education New Zealand to do an R&D. And that gave us enough money to fly to a trade show in the US, an EdTech trade show, and just to get to know, our users in the whole EdTech sector. And during that time, we were getting a lot of teachers using our product, but they're not paying. So they weren't really on our top of our list. Like we have hotels buying it, doctors buying it, professionals buying a license. But we're like, hey, this is very unique. We want to know more. And we got a grant. We'll fly there. And we set up this really tiny booth, have no idea how to do a trade show. And we had we emailed some of our existing users that, hey, in case you're in this show, we'll be at the hall. We would love to meet you. And they did stop by and said hello. And they would literally cry in front of us. And we were shocked. Why are you crying? Like, I love your product. You just changed my life. We were asking them, like, why? Because you just save me a lot of time. And it makes my teaching better. And then that's when the light bulb moment. We're like, okay, talk more. Again, we don't know how to sell to education, but literally someone's in front of us crying. It's not just one person. I think we had 3 people. This is how I use it every day with my students. And this is how it makes so much difference in my day. And we went back home, grabbed the whole team, went to David Russell's house in Waiheke, and just wrote all these possible pathways that we would have gone. And education was one of them. And we were staring at it and we were like, right, I think it's education. The sales bit, questionable, just question mark. But everything about education, it just literally points us to go there. Because I think personally, and I think everybody in that room felt that we got to help these teachers because no one's helping them build this product. The other user cases, they can use something else, right? There's already existing products that they can possibly use. I know it's easier to think, on selling to them, but we felt like we have this obligation to actually focus on the teachers and help them. And that's the start of it. Because again, we started education university and we failed during that time for first year. And we tried to get away from it. And now we're staring at it and say, hey, maybe it is education, but it's a different location and different geographic. So
thanks for listening, and apologies for the interruption. I wanted to share with you that this show is one that we, the team, collectively pour a lot of effort into. There's resources that are involved. We have producers, promoters, and wonderful guests that share their time with us so that you may learn and possibly, hopefully, make some impact on the world as a result of that learning. The only thing I ask of you is go and check out my website. There's a diagnostic tool on there. There's a free downloadable chapter of my upcoming book, remarkably called 2 Commas. And there is some other fascinating resources that I'm not going to tell you about because you need to go to the website to check them out. So thanks for listening, and please continue enjoying the show.
Yeah.
Kevin Kelly, I think it was, wrote an essay which is 1,000 Raving Fans.
Yes, yeah.
And the idea behind it, and there's so many quotable moments already from this conversation, is that you identified through interacting directly with the users at this trade fair that these people really cared about the product.
Absolutely.
And so I love the fact that you had the presence of mind as a group to kind of go, we can't be all things to all people.
Yes.
We've got too much competitive pressure and there's too many options available in different sectors. And so it sounds like there was this kind of penny drop moment for you where it kind of, aha, like this is the sector. There's a lack of servicing of this sector. They care about the product set. We get them. We've come from that space not that long ago. And so there were a multitude of things. And so I think also, and you didn't use this word, but there's the courage to actually niche. The work that I do with founders is that if you're being all things to all people, you're not able to have a unified voice or a specific problem set that you're solving for. And so ergo, nobody's going to find you and you'll just look generic to everybody.
Absolutely. And the biggest challenge during that time is being a niche product wasn't a thing, right?
Yeah.
Right now, it's a thing. Like find a niche problem and fix it and you'll do great.
Yes.
But during that time, it's like the big unicorn stories. And you just like the mindset has always been like, you want to be the next unicorn. You want to be this big thing for everybody. That's why it was a very difficult decision to be in. And also like going back to the investors and telling them, we're going to do education.
I can't recall
Did you feel like, I don't know, like these guys are crazy for going to SaaS?
So great question. So we'd had a couple of conversations separately outside of that where I'd spoken to both you and Henji and then Henji about kind of scaling the sales organization.
Yes.
And I knew it was hard, like it was sticky and it was hard.
It's hard.
And so when you said to me that like education seems to be the space, I had two conflicting things going on inside my mind. On the one hand, I'm like, there's not a lot of money in that space.
Absolutely.
However, there's like it's a niche that I suspect that nobody's going to be playing in. And you'd really done a detailed like analysis and like problematic, solving of the issue that might be in that space. So therefore the opportunity, because the opportunity comes from the problem. And you'd gone through a really methodical process to establish that. And so it was like, well, we can't be all things to all people. We don't have all the resources in the world. There's hungry, aggressive competitors that are out there because essentially you are competing against Adobe, right?
Yeah, a lot of PDF annotation are out there.
Yeah. I mean, Adobe is literally the highest revenue per headcount company in the Valley. I don't know if you know that. They've got about $700,000 USD per employee. So by a metric, they're one of the most successful software companies in the world. So deep pockets and very aggressive in terms of how they operate.
Absolutely.
Those big American companies always tend to have to be in that sort of place.
Yes.
And so I'm like, well, this it makes sense. You've done the thinking. Have at it. And best of luck. Yeah. So you jumped into the education space. Did it get validated early on that was the right decision for you, or did you have reason to question that decision because the sales didn't ramp up initially?
Oh, we validated it quickly.
Yeah, right.
Because once we were like, okay, we'll drop everything, we'll change our attention, but also all our copies to be education focused. It just went really, really well for us because again, there's focus. We know what we're trying to do. We know who we're trying to service. Yes. Now before it was all these silhouette of different personas that we might target. But after that, we know that it's the teacher, this person in the classroom who's lacking time, who needs support, who needs guidance through their day. Like we didn't have a big marketing budget. We didn't do any advertising, not until 2022. 2023, but even now it's not our biggest driver for growth. It's just there. We figured out how to grow organically and just to use the little resource that we have and just scale that to as fast as we can.
Yeah. How did you grow organically? What was was there one unlock or was it a series of things that you did?
It's the constant adoption of the product. So again, like everything is about the product. How do we make the product sticky? How do we make the product great for the teacher in the classroom? And how do we do that? We spend a lot of our time flying to the US. Again, we're still based in New Zealand. Yeah. We will have conversations with the teacher, but it will be different if you're actually in the classroom and you can see the teacher struggling. So that helped us a lot. And we've had this, thing in the company where we try to bring key people to a classroom and actually have that experience. Because again, we're constantly adopting and adjusting our product to suit their needs. So once you have this product that works really, really well and teachers really, really love, selling to them would be a bit easier. It's just a matter of helping them find that budget. And it worked out perfectly. And again, during that time, EdTech in the classroom is fairly new, right? Like they just rolled out Chromebook devices to the classrooms. Content is all digital, and the teachers would print out all these content, give it to the kids, and then scan it back for the Chromebook. So Cammy is that bridge, right? They don't need to print anything. They can use Cammy to create and annotate and do all their work, even grade. And it's this all-in-one product that they can use, and it saves them so much time. But also, along the way, we saved the school a lot of money because supposedly they would spend like tens of thousands on a printer, supply, maintenance. They don't have to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of wastage, and they would just spend a portion of that money in buying a license. They already have the Chromebook devices in their classrooms, but also like it helps the faculty maintain it because Cammy is so easy to maintain. It's just a matter of like getting more teachers onboarded. Yeah. The kids love the product because it's so easy for them, and they can do it. Any kind of work. We have the best top of the product when it comes to like stylus. So if a classroom has like a touchscreen device and they had a stylus, kids would just like write on Cammy and draw on Cammy, and it's just this beautiful experience for them. So the kids love it. Yes. So it actually satisfies all these key holders, in the classroom, and it just works really well. So that's how we grew. Because if a teacher is satisfied, a faculty, a CTO is satisfied, the kids are satisfied, it would spread out. They would talk about it. And that's how we got our early adopters. Because they would tell you if it's a terrible product, but if they love it, they would tell everybody about it.
Yeah, love it. And so you found your ideal market. Mm-hmm. You'd established product market fit in that market. You'd worked out how to sell into the secondary education system. And so you had kind of 2 or 3 years pre-COVID of things going really well.
Yes.
And the business got into the 7 figures, the millions of dollars of recurring revenue. And then COVID happened.
Oh, gosh. Before that, we had 7 million users, and we're already cash flow positive.
Yes.
And when COVID happened, things just changed.
Tell us what happened.
So I think around 2020, we have one of our Cammy ambassadors based in Hong Kong email and say, hey, we're about to go on a lockdown. Can you, or like it's not even a lockdown. It was called like, we're going to work from our homes.
Stay home.
Stay at home, remote learning. I would love to have Cammy in my school, but, we're still trying to figure out the budget. Can we please have a license? We're like, absolutely. And tell us more what's happening. This COVID thing.
Oh, so this is like February 2020 kind of thing? This is wow, okay. So
and
before,
we were like, oh, that is alarming. Of course, we'll give you Cammy. And then that teacher blogged about us, and now around the region, they started around Hong Kong, they started using Cammy. And then I don't know exactly the time difference, but we have some users from Italy emailing us saying, hey, can we use Cammy? But we don't have a budget approved yet, but can we just roll it out to the school? And I think the thinking was like, yeah, absolutely. It's not our biggest market. Again, our biggest market is the US, but we were present in 180 countries. But our focus is US. And we're like, sure, well, this COVID thing has spread to like Italy. we'll give it to you for free. Here, we'll help you on board. And then that's when we started thinking, what if it reaches the US? What shall we do? So we were already preparing for that maybe moment. And we told the team, we were actually working from home 2 weeks before our first lockdown. We told the team, hey, set up your workspace in your home, make yourself comfortable, bring your chairs, bring your screen, bring everything, just in case whatever happened to Asia and Europe, if it happens to the US and New Zealand, we're prepared. And we're like, there must be a week or two of disruption or something. So we were just preparing for that, like a short-term kind of challenge and disruption. And COVID happened, and then I remember that team call where we're trying to decide what to do next, because schools are shutting down, they're all working remotely. Again, they don't have budgets to get any licenses done. The team decided, we'll give it away for free from the rest of the school year.
Rest of the year?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And this is unanimous. Everybody agreed we have to. And even the sales team said we have to.
Wow. And this is to new users or to existing users as
everyone.
well? Everyone. Get
Everyone.
free. So we're going to
So don't tell our investors.
I didn't know this had happened.
Ears. We decided that. I'm so sorry, investors. But we decided we'll give it away for free because, again, we want to do good. Again, we want to help the teachers, and they don't have the time. They don't have a day or even a week to get an approval, to get a budget going. And there's already so much happening that the least that we can do is remove this, challenge for them of figuring out how to get a budget to get a Cammy license. So we agreed. We did a big announcement. Cammy's for free for everybody, even New Zealand, everywhere. It's for free. Thankfully, we're cash flow positive, and we're looking at, all right, we have this much cash. We should have X amount of runway. We'll be fine.
So you went back to kind of startup thinking mode.
Yeah, exactly. And we're of course we all didn't know what's going to happen next, but it wasn't a question. We have to help the teachers. And during that time, the whole company shifted into being customer success people. I would always tell people, I lost my marketing team during that time. What happened? Everyone's doing CS work. I was on maternity leave, but I was cutting checks. Oh, not cutting checks. Sorry. I was, this is before cutting checks. I was actually helping tickets. And they're like, why? It's we have to help teachers. Because during that time, we've had early adapters. So they're very tech savvy teachers. They know technology, at least the most basic level. And now we're getting teachers who have no idea what a Google Classroom is. They're just don't know how to use technology, right? So we ended up actually onboarding and helping all these teachers who don't know how to use the technology in general. And that's just our focus is just to cater to all these teachers. And I am so thankful to our team during that time because we were working really crazy hours. And not to mention, we were always trying to figure out this lockdown that's happening, in our country. We're trying to figure out what is this?
And you had a new baby.
And I had a new baby. Everybody's just trying to survive, but also help others miles away. And this is the craziest thing. We would get 1 million signups for 1 year. That's our best kind of rate during that before COVID. And now we were getting 1 million a week. And then there was a moment that we had 1 million to 2 million a day. And that was crazy.
That is bananas. And that was on the basis of it being free initially. Did you have was it free for a period, or was it just take it free for the year?
Just take it for free for the year. Yeah. We'll figure it out later. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Yeah. So just take it for free. If you think that's crazy, the craziest thing is that we got our first purchase order, not even a week since we announced that it's for free. And then, we would go back to them and say, hey, no need for this. It's for free. Right. And they're like, oh, no. we got a budget and we want you guys to stay afloat.
You need to take the budget.
We want you guys to keep going. We don't, you guys need to survive as well. It's like, thanks for thinking about us. Like, thank you. And then the purchase orders started coming in. The checks started coming in. So this is when I mentioned, like, I was on maternity leave. I was cutting checks and scanning, processing purchase orders.
For those that are unfamiliar, America still runs on a paper-based system, so
checks.
People actually do send checks.
They literally do send checks.
Bananas.
And there was this one time a box of checks from the US accidentally got delivered in Japan. So it's like, I don't know, like $1 million worth of checks accidentally. Don't tell our investors, Josh.
This is like a Pablo Escobar-esque kind of story where you've got like so much money coming in. It's all paper-based and we're swimming. And
the funniest thing, we're like trying to reduce paper, and unfortunately we can't do anything about it because there's your financial system. But yeah, I was receiving all these checks. I was scanning it and cutting it, and we're just like, what is happening? Like you can just imagine all these things coming in, and we don't even have a moment to reflect on it. Like I was telling someone the other day that we used to pop a champagne bottle every million, and we would display that cork with the number in our office. And someone asked me, like, why did it stop at 10? That's when the whole company decided we don't want to drink champagne anymore, because there was a moment that we were drinking champagne
every day.
And even during lockdowns, we would send our team members a gift box with a celebration box with a tiny champagne and some goodies, and that was really fun. Again, just to celebrate every moment that we've had. And this is the craziest thing. And then we decide, okay, 10 million. We bought a big champagne. I think we were level 2 that time. We were in the office and we popped that big champagne. I was like, this is the last champagne. Surely it's going to stop at 10. Come on. No, we went to 40 million. It's crazy.
Wow. And so that was all during the 2020 year.
Yeah, 2020.
And people were starting to go, we need to give you some money. So when the dust settled, so you went from a couple of million of users, 7 million.
7 million.
7 to 40 over the space of a short few months or so.
3 years-ish.
Yep. Yeah, wow. Okay. And so when did you kind of come off that massively aggressive growth curve, and how did you know the time was right to shift from that free model into the paid model, and what happened? So
it's already paid. So it didn't last that long. Like as mentioned, like a week, schools would start sending us purchase orders. So we're already back to selling, and our sales team is all inbound. It's a great time to be a Cammy salesperson during that time.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's just a matter of processing them and making sure that we got that sorted for the licenses. I think the growth unicorn, one of 100-year kind of moment ended around 2023. That's when it went back to normal. So this is when almost all the schools are back to regular setup, and now all the budgets from the COVID has kind of ended or about to end, so they're back to being regular. That's when we started shifting our strategy from all inbound growth to okay, how do we maintain this?
Yes.
And that's the next challenge for us.
Yeah. And so what were the considerations for you of going from the COVID inbound growth to the next phase of kind of outbound growth? What were the things you were looking at?
About the product, the good thing is that we already have an existing well-proven product before COVID. So we know the classroom needed this product. So it's not just a remote setup kind of product. They actually use this in the classroom. The remote thing just happened during 2023. So we're trying to re-educate a lot of these existing non-early adopter, non-techie teachers to actually educate them. You can still use it in the classroom, and this is how you use it in the classroom. So it's something new to them as well. It's something something that they never thought of. They thought technology is just for remote learning. And that's the challenge for us. Because again, our biggest competitor is actually the pen and paper. Because a lot of these teachers would be like tech fatigue from doing all these remote tech work. That's why we've seen a lot of edtech companies actually close up after that big boom. They would make a lot of money, and then afterwards they would just fold. But we know that this product exists before that, that period of time. And we try to re-educate them that, you can use this and it actually helps you. So that's the shift now. So we're shifting back to where we were before and actually, telling our story about Cammy being in the classroom and helping them.
So you'd figured out how to sell, how to grow, how to maintain customers, and you had an amazing business at the end of 2023. At what stage did the talks of a potential acquisition coming up, and how did that conversation start and then move on from there?
It's a constant thing that we're being asked, because like even 2020, 2023, with all that growth, we've had a lot of interest from different funds, but we know that if we do this, it gotta be the right timing, but also we don't want to get distracted, because again, there's so much happening and we're doing really fine. We don't need the extra money, and founders, we still want to continue. We still know that we have a lot of work to do to build this company to where it should be. So we've all agreed like this is not the right time. And then I think the conversation for a partial exit is around 2024, when we're thinking what's next for Cammy, right? We need a partner that would help us to the next stage of growth for the company. We need the expertise and their connections to be able to do that and reach that next couple of milestones. So that's one of the reasons why we started thinking about the partial exit. So that's one. The second one is for us founders, right? Like we all have our own reasons why we want to do this investment. And personally, for me and Hinji, like, we've spent 12 years dedicated into this. Now we have a family. We got to de-risk ourselves, right? Like we know what we're going to do with Cammy. We still believe in it. However, we got to de-risk, we got to diversify as well. And the third is like, investors who have supported us for more than a decade. You guys need something in return. So I think those are some of the key reasons why we decided to we'll have a look. If we do find the right partner, we'll do it. But if not, that's fine. We'll continue doing this and figure out a way to, move to the next stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the initial thought.
And so what made you consider, actually two steps to this question. Firstly, what is a partial,
Yes.
rather than making any assumptions? And what made you favor the partial over the full exit?
Okay. We did a partial exit. We call it a partial exit because it's basically having a majority stakeholder in the company, and that would also pay out all the existing shareholders, which is comprised of early angels and early investors into the company. But the founders are still there. So we're still part of the company. So it's just the founders plus the majority stakeholder, which is in this case, Boston Ventures. It's not a full exit. And the reason why we didn't want to do a full exit is because we still have a lot to do. And as mentioned, what does Cammy look like in 5 to 6 years? This is where Cammy should be, but we couldn't do it ourselves. We got to help. We need help to accelerate that growth, to reach that goal. And partnering with someone like BV would be the thing that we need to be able to do that. So that's our partial exit.
Yeah. is so much logic in it, and I think that it's a not often enough considered option for founders because you de-risk things, absolutely. You get to enable those that have supported the journey to take some, maybe all of the money off the table for them. The thing that happens in New Zealand is that, and I think it's relatively unique to New Zealand, is that when there's a capital extraction moment, very rarely do we go out and buy boats and aircraft and that sort of stuff. It gets recycled.
Absolutely.
It comes back into the ecosystem again. And so, famously, I'll let you tell the story, but the biggest ever exit that's happened for the NZGCP, used to be VIF, happened as a consequence of this. So tell us about those numbers.
So, for example, NZGCP, New Zealand Growth Capital Partners, it's a government arm, right? They manage this fund wherein they invest into startup, and they invested in Cammy. So I think during that time they invested around 500 to a million. I can't remember the exact number in 2014. And after this deal, they made around 70x that investment. They made 37 million, which is amazing. This is this, what we had is great, but this is even better because that means that there's $37 million more that they can invest back to more startups, more companies in New Zealand. And that's the most exciting thing. And that's what we feel great about the whole deal is like we're actually cycling the money back to the ecosystem. And this is the perfect time to do so because we might be in economic challenge right now, but this is when the best ideas come out. Right? Like it's not during the best of times. It's actually the most challenging times that entrepreneurs come up with the best ideas. And this is the perfect time to invest in them. And it just feels great to know that that money is going to be in that ecosystem. Yeah,
100%. And, we met back in 2013 when the company was just starting to get out of the ground. You'd just come through the university challenge. And we famously met in one of the Flying Kiwi Angels. We'd just formed as a group, one of their offices. We had a roast chicken and some sushi reading it with our fingers because we had no implements inside this office. It was hilarious. And we made a decision on the spot to kind of assist with the pre-seed funding. And personally, I then invested again. I think it was twice. And so blended return for me across those three was 200x, which
amazing.
Is a phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal story. And I'm eternally grateful for that
we're
experience
thankful
along
for
the
you
journey.
as well. Because we wouldn't be able to do what we did without
symbiotic relationship. Very much so.
Absolutely.
And so, for me, my situation was that over 50% of that went back into the system again.
Amazing.
And so, it's gone across a range of different types of ventures at different phases.
Absolutely.
But it's about kind of making sure that the next generation can come through in whatever form that takes as well. And so the valuation which was achieved, the New Zealand Herald had this, so it was kind of public, was a $300 million valuation, and it enabled all this exit kind of money to float around. And so for you as co-founders of the company and, Henji and you together obviously have a reasonably substantial stake in that. What changed?
Personally or
for you
company?
Personally. For you and Henji as a family, a situation, like your outlook on money and life and that sort of thing.
I think it's more that now we have the capital to invest as well. So we're now 2013, which is really exciting. So, I've been really excited to meet startup founders and actually hear their story, but also invest in them and hopefully invest more. Because again, we know that we're going to get more amazing companies here, and we want to be that investor to support the next big thing. And that's what excites us. It's actually being able to invest, but also help. Right? We've gone through all the battles and we would love to share some of our experiences to them. We want to be that, the Bob Drummond and the David Russell who want to go back and help the young founders. And that's amazing for us. This is what we wanted to be as well.
Yes. Yeah, I love that you're doing that. And thank you for kind of getting involved in the system in that kind of level and perspective. And so a curious question for you. So I had Nick Crawford on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he's a wealth manager. And what he specializes in is instant wealth moments.
Yes.
And so it's either from those that have a company exit and the company may not have been one that they took the profits from.
Yep.
Could have been an inheritance moment or even a divorce moment.
Yep.
And so it's this, I didn't have a great deal of money, now I have a great deal of money. And so did your kind of relationship with money change at all, or did your lifestyle change at all? Did you make any decisions that you look back upon going, that was a little bit weird?
No, I think we've been really good at money. And like, it's great that Hinji and I have started, built this company so we know how we decide on where do we spend the money or our resources at, which is great. Like, the only difference is just like, before we were living with our parents for a couple of years, right? Like we were freeloaders. And it's a good position to be in that we don't have to worry about that, but we can help our family as well. And that's the position that, we actually want to be in, which is great. Because again, like for us, wealth is great. We're doing this startup not because of wealth, maybe, second, third reason to do a startup. Because again, that motivates you personally. We both didn't come from, very privileged families. So we know how to actually survive and do the hard work. And, at the end, we value what we got. And we want to protect that and we want to do better. That's why, the first things we want to do is invest. Not buy both like you. Like, you mentioned, like, thankfully, New Zealand angel investors aren't like that. They're, they're very connected to the ecosystem that they just want to continue doing and helping. So we want to be like that.
Yeah. You talk a lot about consistently through this conversation, you've talked about the importance of customer and being grounded in the problem that you're solving.
Absolutely.
It's quite clear you have a passion and a connection with that issue.
Yes.
And it's been said that money doesn't change people, but it accentuates their traits, whether they are positive or negative.
Yeah.
And so you've got a great degree of humility about you and a willingness to share your story. Yeah. And so the instant wealth moment has merely meant that you've given back to the system a bit more. You probably no doubt supported your parents because they supported you over that time as well. And there's probably the tiny bit of lifestyle things, but you haven't become at all flashy along the way.
Oh, no.
And so I just love the evolution of how this has played out for you, Alliv.
And I think it's also the New Zealand culture as well. Like, we're not that flashy here in New Zealand. We appreciate the beautiful things, but we're not, in the face kind of flashy. We're not driven by material things. We're driven by what motivates us, which is like helping other people, giving back to the community, and actually doing better because, we just want to do better in life. Yeah, very much. And that's very demonstrated. Off camera, we talked about Tech Week, which is just at the back end of it. And you've been around the country, Wellington, kind of speaking at a whole bunch of events and hoping to inspire and give some insight to people that are earlier on in the journey from the journey that you've been through and the lessons that you've taken away from it. Yeah, so that's what I spend, my free time on is actually just doing more of the, talks and meetups. And I've been active actually for the past couple of years at helping Center for Entrepreneurship in Auckland Uni, but also like Ministry of Awesome and other agencies that actually, help startups and help founders. So I've been active in that. And, it's nothing different, I guess, since the beginning, because Hinji and I have always been interested in actually sharing knowledge.
Yes.
So it's not that, we want to show people how to be successful. It's actually, we want to share our battle scars so that you don't have to do the same mistakes that we did.
Yeah. You'll be rubbing shoulders with Janine Granger at the Ministry of Awesome. So she's sold Easy Crypto relatively recently.
Really
and so that's becoming like a main, not primary, but a main objective for her as well.
Yes.
And so it's great to see that continues to be the case. One of the things that I observed about you and Hinji and Jordan being product, we didn't have a lot of interactions in the early days. And this is something which I think is a really like vital thing for people earlier on in the stage of their growing their companies, is that you were very, very open to taking insight from wherever that could come from.
Yes.
You had the strength of conviction and character to be able to make your own decisions, but you were incredibly curious and you're always asking questions. So we've got this problem over here. What do you think about it? What have you seen that might work? What ideas have you got? And so you were amazing at canvassing the people that were around you that could support you and getting insight. And it was a very attractive trait in founders, but also it enables you to get better insight into how to solve these really gnarly problems from people that have hopefully been there before. What do you think about the New Zealand, because it's interesting for me to look at the evolution of the New Zealand startup ecosystem over time. And so if you look at the startup ecosystem in New Zealand right now, what do you think is going really well and what could we do to improve it?
I think the strength of the New Zealand ecosystem, based on what I've noticed for the past couple of years, is that we do have really good founders, right? We have founders who are hungry to build something. Even the most niches like products, they would want to build it. But I've met a couple of founders who are just really eager to pick your brain, which is amazing. Those are the best kind of founders. The best kind of founders are open to advice and ideas, but they know how to filter it, right? They know how to filter what will work for them and what wouldn't, but they're open ears. And that's the type of founder that I think are absolutely gonna do really well, because it's not just getting advice from someone, it's also building relationships, because we're a small nation. Our ecosystem is still small compared to other tech, ecosystems out there. But it's about building that relationship and actually understanding, okay, this person has gone through all these battles. I want to know how they did this, but also apply it to their own situation, right? Like not everything works for you, but at the end of the day, you got to filter it, but also build that relationship with them.
And if there was any mistakes that you see either startup founders make or the ecosystem itself, what things do you think that we could improve upon?
I think just siloing yourself, right? Like those who silo themselves from everything just because they want to silo themselves, then I think that's the biggest mistake they'll be doing, because we do have amazing people in this country. A lot of like expats who've worked in like the Bay Area and the big industries, and they would love to share their experience for founders. And if you're a founder who would prefer to silo yourself and just like, this is my amazing idea and I'm going to do it my own way, like that's great. Like you do your own way, but again, like the best ideas are the ones that are being nurtured by different people and touched by different aspects of your journey. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for them if they do silo.
Yeah. It's funny. I veer in and out of networking and socializing with people outside of my core group, which is Flying Kiwi Angels. Yeah. And so recently I was at an event through the Angel Association and talking about non-siloing yourself. Met a character that was out here from the United States, good guy, very bright, well-connected. Happens to be that good friends of mine have just moved to the Bay Area, but invested in both of their companies and connected them up. And they've actually just recently confirmed raising money from him, but most importantly, getting a part of a program that he's a key part of. Amazing. That came about through networking interactions with people and these sort of things. Absolutely. You never know where these conversations are going to come from. Yeah. And so, getting out to the events, meeting the people, even if you're uncomfortable with it, telling your story, being open to getting feedback on that story. I find one of the least attractive traits in startup founders is those that just have this dogged kind of, I'm right kind of thing.
I'm always right kind of mentality. Unfortunately, there are a couple that I'm always right, like I'm going to do it my way. Great. But again, like you literally need a village to survive as a founder. And you need a support system, whatever angle, whatever facet that may be, but you do need that support.
And so are there any other moments that you went through that were kind of, pivotal moments for you as a growing a successful startup?
Now the biggest challenge is like we're pivoting to the next stage of the company wherein we're going to be more of a sales-led growth because we are now this big. We've covered this much. how do we make more statewide deals, like the statewide deal we did with Louisiana, getting LA, Los Angeles Unified School District, New York, both these schools. How do we scale that? And that's a different playing field. That's a different strategy altogether. It's a whole different business, to be honest, because it's a different marketing strategy, a different sales approach, different exec kind of knowledge as well. So this is our fourth pivot that I can think of, and it's the biggest one.
Yeah, right. Interesting. I guess it's the biggest because you now have some substance and some scale to the business. You've got clarity on processes, roles. You've got organizational rhythm of going about running the business.
Yes.
And now you've got to challenge that because you're going from product to sales-led.
Sales-led.
Yeah,
yes.
Growth. What would you see as being some of the key differences between product-led and sales-led growth?
I think we're still focused on the teachers. It's always going to be that. We're still going to make sure that the product is perfect for our users, but it's now the moment of us making sure that, okay, will this feature be good for the teacher, but also will this something that a district sale would benefit, or a statewide sale would benefit. So it's a lot of the thinking of the user, because again, like we've done really well with the product, and we know how to continue doing that. So it's going to continue, but now we got to be smart about like, how do we make more deals from this, but also like, how do we expand outside of the US? So we're looking at some key markets that we want to venture into, and that's already a different kind of strategy.
Yeah. It's kind of like moving from mid-market to enterprise in some aspects. Is that right? And even kind of bigger enterprise than that if you're doing statewide deals.
Absolutely.
That means very complex deal structures, long negotiation cycles.
And that requires different kinds of skill sets as well. So this is when the Cammy team, evolves into a different group of people. Like, we have the basics, we have the talent that can do all the things to support us into, growth. If we don't do anything, the company will still grow, right? Because it's been tested and proven. But now we're adding talents that would bring us that enterprisey kind of deal. And that's the different set of skills.
Yeah. Putting aside that I was a pre-seed and then a seed investor in the company, and just thinking kind of objectively about it, knowing what you know now about fundraising and looking back on the journey, what, if anything, would you do differently about that?
It wasn't, looking back at it, we didn't raise a lot of money, right? We only raised around 2 million New Zealand, and that kept us through for 12 years.
Yeah, wow.
Right? In the scale of things, when you look at other companies, that's, how do you do that? But we've been smart at where our resources go and where we're going. So before we did the pre-seed and seed raise, we already have the plan in mind. This is what we're going to do with the money, and this is the result that we're going to get. And we're quite confident about that strategy. That's why we raised the money. It's small in the scale of things. We didn't hire hundreds of engineers.
Yes.
We've only had like 3 to 5, software engineers for the past, couple of years.
Is that all?
Like even now, we only had around 20 something. We're still growing, but again, we're focusing on great talent than numbers, right? And that's what we've been doing. We're conservative. We've been conservative at where our resources go and how we raise the money. Because again, as founders, we don't want to be diluted that much, because what motivates us is the end game, right? And, if the end game looks like we only have a tiny portion of the company, then that's not really like motivational for any founder. So we really kept it as tight as possible. And to be honest, like even the last raise, not the BV raise, but the last seed raise, we didn't actually need the money. We were just trying to build that war chest just in case things don't go well. We have a little bit more runway, but that's how we think. We're like preparing for the worst That's why when the worst happened, which is 2020, 2023, we were ready. That's why, we were confident to give away the product for free because we already made enough money. Plus we have this war chest, sitting in the corner of, that we can use if we needed to. But that's why we did things.
Yes. Been an array of things that we've spoken about today, Alliv.
Yep.
Is there anything that I haven't touched on that is a subject or a topic that's near and dear to you about startup growth, exiting a company that you'd like to share?
I think there has been this mentality that people want to raise, especially for the early stages. They want to raise overseas, right? And we've been through that moment where we were really frustrated where we couldn't raise money overseas, especially during our when we started as founders. This period is you gotta be a YC company to be a unicorn and to succeed. Like you gotta raise money from the Bay Area, which is that's great to have, but it is difficult to do, and you're gonna be wasting time and energy trying to get that and achieve that. Those who do, amazing, but not everybody can do that. And the mistake is that the great money is out there. There's actually great money here in New Zealand, right? Like angel investors like yourself, FKA, they exist. And, as mentioned before, there's great talents here that can help any founder through their early stages of the company. That's why I felt like, us raising our capital here in New Zealand was the best way to do it. Because again, imagine if we did raise that money from the US, we would have had, American investors who are more aggressive when it comes to spending, right? They would be telling us you got to hire 100 people right now, get a fancy office somewhere, get all these very expensive things and spend all the money. But that's not how we want to run the company. We want to get the basics right, get everything that we needed to grow and just grow. Not, we don't need this extra things because that's distraction. Having more people doesn't mean that it's great for the company. It may be the death of you as well. And that's what we've seen during the COVID years. We've seen edtech companies grow so fast, raise a lot of money. That's why for us, we didn't think about raising during that crazy period because, we don't want to be distracted, right? We don't want to be distracted by the shiny money. And, we've seen some companies who did that, which is they ended up scaling their team so fast. But what happens after that period? That's the challenge. Yeah. And during that time, we were very conservative with our growth internally that it made us more stable. So when 2023 happened, all these crazy growth stopped and we're back to normal. We can continue, moving forward. But those who grew so fast with all these, challenges of operational challenges, they would fold. And that is because we have the support, we have the existing support from local investors who are more conservative and, more sanity into decision making, right?
Yes.
You guys didn't tell us hey, use this money to hire X amount of people. No, you just here's the money and then use it as you planned it.
Be prudent.
Be very, very prudent. And we're really good at that. We're very resourceful. Again, we didn't spend a lot of that money on advertising because, again, we didn't see that that's the pathway for our own personal growth. We used it to where it should be, and that's building that product.
Another expression that pops to mind is as many startups die from gluttony as they do from starvation. And so having too much capital can actually be a real downside.
It is a downside.
Because the discipline goes, the conservative approach goes, the culture changes super, super rapidly if you go through a massive hiring spree. And so that's a really, really helpful, insightful thing. Alliv, you've been incredibly generous with your insights today. There's many bits of the story that I didn't know, which I'm really glad that we got to unpack today. And I'm super, super grateful for you, having the business and the exit that we all enjoyed, but also B, coming on the show today and sharing all your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and great to share the story. And also great to share the story with you because we've gone through the same,
Long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Alliv.
Thanks, John.
If you enjoy these episodes, I hope you do. I love filming them, and the guests always say what a great and often cathartic experience it is for them. Then please do like and share. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm open to connect requests, and occasionally get emails from people as well asking me about my experience around certain subjects. So please do like and share and continue to follow the show. I really appreciate your ears.